The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the bonus show. I talked about this yesterday, and it is now time to talk about it for real. Yesterday, I was pre-promoting it, but now I am going to actually promote this. So we approached an advertiser named Wonder Capital about 5-6 weeks ago, and I said to them, what you're doing, allowing people to invest in solar energy projects as a way to diversify investment portfolios, would fit perfectly with our audience. And I said to them, I would love it if you tried out advertising on our show. They did a one-day advertising attempt about 10 days ago or so, I believe it was. And it went well enough that they decided to try another day because, you know, first time could be a fluke, could be beginner's luck. What's the deal? They want to find out. So today on the regular show, which of course as a member you wouldn't know about, if you listen to the commercial-free version of the show, Wonder Capital advertised again. And my goal is, and I think most of the people who value the show enough to support it as members understand, my goal is to get Wonder Capital as a long-term advertiser on the David Pakman Show, not just one day 2 weeks ago and one day this week. So even if you don't have any money to invest, even if you have money to invest but don't necessarily want to invest it in solar, please just create an account with Wonder Capital, okay? Because that's one indicator for them as to how interested our audience is. And you can do that at wondercapital.com/Pakman, and it's WUNDER, capital.com/PAKMAN. And if the program that they offer is interesting to you, which allows you to, you're basically investing in a sort of mini solar energy mutual fund with $1,000 minimum investment, which can earn up to 8.5% annually. If it's interesting to you, by all means, participate beyond just signing up at wondercapital.com/Pakman. But we've had some good, I don't want to call it luck, but we've had some good selection lately with advertisers where Tagadab, the hosting company, which did a trial run of a few spots here and there, they have now committed to 3 months, Pat, because clearly people in our audience responded and understood, hey, here's a company that's supporting the David Pakman Show. I will support them by hosting my website with Tagadab. And we have that opportunity here with Wonder Capital. And I've told stories before, and you've heard some of them, Pat, of when advertisers will come to us and it's just not a fit. I mean, it's pseudoscience. It's a product that's damaging to the environment. And I just turn it down. So I'm selective in terms of who we allow. And hopefully the audience gets that.
You have to make sure there's no conflicts of interest, which we have done in this case. And
Right.
with Wonder Capital, it's great because you can invest either your money or just your time by making that account.
Yes, that's correct. And that account, of course, probably takes, what would you guess, 20, 23, 24 seconds to make?
24.3.
Yeah, that's we timed Pat earlier in terms of how long it took him, and we went through the exercise a few times. And you did a heck of a job with it.
That was the average of all.
That was average, yeah. I mean, certainly it could be done in less, could be done in a little bit more. So wondercapital.com/Pakman. Create an account if nothing else, and look around, WUNDER capital.com/Pakman. Okay, let's move on. What happened to the body-slamming Republican, Montana Republican, Congress member-elect Greg Gianforte? He's the guy who was audio recorded body-slamming a reporter when the reporter was asking simple political questions the day before his special election. And not surprisingly to many of us, he ended up still winning despite having body slammed a reporter just asking questions. He was charged with a misdemeanor for that. He has now been sentenced. You will be either pleased if you expected him to get no punishment at all, or outraged if you felt he deserved more serious punishment. That he has been sentenced to, wait for it, 40 hours of community service and 20 hours of anger management.
Well, you know, initially the judge gave him 4 days in jail,
Right.
and then downgraded the sentence. And I don't think that the judge thought it over a second time and realized, oh, community service and a fine would just be enough. I think he was just trying to scare Gianforte, and
you think
probably
so?
did successfully, yeah, because he would have to think, I'm going to be a sitting U.S. House of Representatives member,
Or
and
elect
I'm
anyway.
going to be in jail for this.
Yeah. Pathetic. The entire thing is pathetic. It's pathetic that the guy was elected, but of course this is the era of Trump, where making fun of disabled reporters, sexually harassing a dozen women doesn't disqualify you from being president of the United States. If you can be president and do those things, then of course you can body slam a reporter and be elected a member of Congress. I mean, in that sense, it's not surprising in the least.
And of course, the guy says that now he takes full responsibility, but only after denying it initially and questioning the guy's report.
I've been thinking about the community service aspect of it because I've been watching I guess it's season 3 of Better Call Saul right now.
Oh, yeah?
And without giving anything away about the storyline, there is a community service situation that applies during season 3. And just sort of the both absurdity of it, and also the way that our criminal justice system works in terms of the broad range of there are crimes for which you might end up spending months in prison. Well, I guess it would be jail if it's months. Or you end up picking up trash on the side of the highway, for lack of a better example.
Yeah. And this was a misdemeanor assault, but what stops it from being a felony assault? I mean, if you grab someone by the neck and then slam them to the ground and then punch them repeatedly, I mean, I think that would count as a felony.
What I read is that because Ben Jacobs, the reporter who was body slammed, was not more severely injured, the impact that the body slam had was part of whether it was a misdemeanor or felony.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure Gianforte, when he was grabbing him by the throat and slamming him to the ground, was thinking, I don't want to hurt him too bad.
I only want to break his glasses, as Ben Jacobs said happened. Okay, so that's what happened with Greg Gianforte.
And also, he's going to give a $50,000 donation to the Committee to Protect Journalists, which I find to be appropriate.
Okay, is that true? I didn't read that.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of I don't know if it's a settlement, but it's part of the deal for Ben Jacobs not pressing any charges.
Oh, okay, because Ben Jacobs could sue civilly, right? I mean, he would be able to do that. Okay, so there it is. Greg Gianforte will do a few hours of community service before ultimately being seated in the U.S. House of Representatives. How pathetic is our country at this point, Pat? It's unbelievable.
If you live in Montana, that's going to be a representative no matter where you are in the state.
Police are investigating a reported burglary, and in doing so, they've seized about $1 million of methamphetamine. But it is not methamphetamine the way you might imagine it if you, for example, watched Breaking Bad. These are meth-laced lollipops. 600 pounds of the homemade candy drug mixture was melted into various shapes, including both Batman and Star Wars figures. And it was discovered in a Houston home during the investigation of a burglary. Police said the drugs had a street value of about $1 million. I've never experienced meth lollipops. I have experienced cocaine rock candy. That I'm very familiar with. But no, I'm kidding. Pat looks horrified over there. Pat,
well, it's not that far of a stretch because marijuana edibles are pretty common.
Right, that's true. That's true. A concerned neighbor apparently called police a couple days ago to report that a house was being burglarized. So officers showed up, arrived at the scene, discovered a male and a female removing lollipops from the home. And it's sort of a weird thing to burglarize a home and to be caught stealing candy, which made the police say, maybe this is something we need to look into a little more. And indeed, these were meth lollipops. And it's kind of brilliant in a way, right?
I guess. I mean, the police are approaching it from the angle as maybe they were trying to market this to children. I don't really think that was the case. I think just the form of the lollipops made it to be a little bit more discreet.
Yeah, I mean, who's going to assume that if you see candy that you should be testing it for drugs or whatever the case may be? I don't think it was to market to kids.
Of course not. But I mean, the problem is, maybe those drugs get lost in transition somewhere, and a kid finds it and he starts sucking on the lollipop, thinking that it's just a piece of candy.
Well, that's sort of the fear-mongering that was going on around edibles and marijuana legalization, which was, hey, listen, brownies are appealing to kids. And if you've got pop brownies, then and they're being sold legally, then kids are going to get into them. And of course, the counter to that is, number one, in order to buy those, you do have to be 21. And you have to be 21 to buy alcohol. And there are many alcoholic beverages that look like smoothies or juice or whatever. And nobody's saying, hey, listen, liquor stores to people who are over 21 are selling whatever that looks like a juice drink. That's going to be dangerous for kids. Nobody's saying that. And it's the same argument. It was only being made with marijuana.
I mean, it certainly can happen, though. I have a friend in high school who made a batch of enhanced brownies at his home. And his mother saw them the next day and just assumed they were normal brownies.
Sure.
Packed one into his little sister's lunchbox. And then the next morning, I don't know how old she was. Maybe she was 10 years old. Like, this was a big concern.
Yep.
And then the next morning, he realized what had happened, and they had to just rush to the school before lunchtime to make sure she didn't eat that.
Were they able to make it?
I think they made it, yeah.
That's an incredible story.
I know.
I'm surprised that the anti-legalization committee didn't come to you so that you would be able to present that story in an ad.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's right up the alley of what they're suggesting.
Oh, yeah, from my perspective, too. Not
Right.
even my friends, so it's just entirely hearsay.
Yeah. Yeah, but Pat declined to participate in that anti-legalization commercial. So you might be asking, well, how did someone know that the meth lollipops were in this particular house? Apparently, I mentioned a man and a woman perpetrated the burglary, allegedly, of course. And reportedly, the woman used to live in the house, and the house is where the meth lollipops were being produced. So she had firsthand knowledge of what was available for the taking at this particular house. And this is not going to be a good situation for the two alleged burglars. And this is not going to be a good situation for the people still living in the house who are manufacturing meth lollipops.
I didn't even know that meth could be taken orally, too. You think, because one of these drugs that you snort or you smoke hits you more immediately and stronger. You wouldn't want to have it be something that you eat because if you digest it,
I'm not
then
convinced.
It takes longer to set in and all that stuff.
It could be that when you get these meth lollipops, you put it in a pot of water and melt it down and then evaporate or somehow separate it out. Like this might have been just a transportation method.
Yeah, so it's just entirely for that then. It's not for consuming.
No, but the same thing occurred to me. Although you could probably eat meth, right? I mean, people in that, I'm so clueless about this, but I know people typically snort cocaine, but I've heard of people rubbing cocaine on their gums and stuff like that, and it still has an effect.
Yeah, not the same for marijuana unless you cook it, I think.
Right. Okay, well, that's that. 600 pounds of meth lollipops. I do wonder, the 600 pounds is the total weight, including the candy. Like, how much actual meth weight do they estimate there is for that $1 million street value?
And do you get prosecuted for the entire thing? I mean, like,
that's a good point.
That could really screw someone.
I think it's not going to matter because it's a lot.
Actually, that's an interesting question when it comes to marijuana because a lot of states put a maximum limit at, say an ounce of possession
legally.
But yeah, so maybe they stop you and you have a batch of marijuana brownies. And the marijuana itself would only weigh
a couple grams,
but overall it would weigh over an ounce and put you over that limit.
You might have a pound of brownies.
I
read the book Narconomics recently. By the way, have we heard back from the author trying to get him on, Tom Wainwright?
No.
Okay, yeah, that's too bad. I'd love to interview him. Anyway, the book Narconomics talks about how when you hear about Border Patrol seized $3 million worth of marijuana, or something like that. And you don't really question it. You're like, oh, okay, $3 million worth. $3 million worth could mean very, very different things in terms of how much, because you could determine the price of marijuana goes up through the distribution process, right? When you start with the plants, and if you look at, let's think about a kilogram of marijuana. The amount of plants required to end up with a kilogram of marijuana is very, very different in terms of its street value than a fully processed kilogram of marijuana distributed into individual bags for sale.
It's just like anything else. As you buy in bulk, the price goes down.
Exactly.
So typically, if these people have that much, they're not going to be selling it into individual grams. They're going to go to the next guy.
So the concept is, if Border Patrol seizes 50 kilograms of marijuana at the border or something like that, it's not yet packaged for sale at all. It's not even gotten to the mid-level dealers who are going to subdivide the kilograms and give them to other dealers. So is it really fair to calculate the value of those 5 kilograms at what it will eventually be once it's been distributed, weighed, subdivided, and at the street level? Increasingly, the argument is no, not really. So when you hear, oh, it's $3 million worth, well, no, it would have been once actually made available for sale, but it's $500,000 of marijuana, or whatever the case may be.
It certainly isn't fair, but I think it's so drug enforcement can make these dealers look worse than they actually are.
And make themselves look better. Hey, we seized $100 million worth of drugs this year. Did you really? Because you got it at a very high level, at which point it's not worth anywhere close to that.
Yeah, and most people are just going to take their word for it, not look too much into it, may not even be knowledgeable of this stuff. So
Anyway, the more you know. Very, very important stuff. That's it for the bonus show. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.